Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rabbenu Avraham ben Harambam on the Parasha with Parasha Study Plus. Today, we're going to be studying Parashat Noach with a little different style. Unfortunately, we're missing Parashiot Noach and Lech Lecha in Rabbenu Avraham's Perush. And so we have to glean in his other sources and his other works to sort of try to find his commentary, his take, and his philosophy on something related to the parasha, and thus we are going to be looking at a large text taken from his book that we mentioned last week, Hamaspik Le'ovdei Hashem, the Guide to Serving God, which he wrote in the Arabic. It's translated in Hebrew and in English. An amazing book in which he really delves into Musar and philosophy. And we're going to be dealing with essentially the issue of working in contrast to bitachon, or trust in Hashem, and we'll see how it relates really to our parasha, somewhat indirectly, directly, however you want to say it. So Rabbenu Avraham says as follows. He brings a bunch of Pesukim from Tehillim and so forth. He says, "Ve'en kavanat Pesukim." Don't misinterpret or misunderstand these Pesukim. Don't think that because you have bitachon, you have trust, you have, so to speak, emunah in Hashem, you could just sit back and sit idly by, without any effort in getting your parnasa, in attaining your wealth. And just to wait passively by as your food, as your needs come down from the heavens. Like was done with the man in the midbar, with the door that left Egypt. Or from some other random unknown place. As we have seen in different stories with the Nevi'im and different Tzaddikim, that they needed and God provided for them in very unusual, unique, miraculous circumstances. Do not rely on such things. Because this is a level that not all are able to achieve and to attain. Now, what level do you think would be needed to be so righteous, such a Sadiq, that you could just sit back and trust in Hashem? But we're going to see many characters who did not do so, and they were quite righteous. Even the greatest of the Tanaim in the times of the Mishnah, Avdu, they worked befarech, not simply, they worked back-breaking labor, for their parnasa. Hillel, the great Tana Hillel, haya chotev etzim. He was a wood chopper, and he did so for his earning and living. The Karna haya dole mayim. This Tana Karna was a water bearer, carrier, and irrigator. That's what he did for a living, even though he was a great Talmid Chacham. Rabbi Yehoshua haya pehami. He was he sold coal. He was a coal merchant, which was a very laborious and difficult task, but that was his job, as described in Masechet Berachot. The Abba Chelkiah, one of the most miraculous individuals, haya choresh sechir yom. He plowed the field. And this was an individual, Abba Chelkiah, as described in Masechet Ta'anit, who incredible miracles were performed for him, not just him personally. His tefillah would result in rain falling for the entire world. Yet he himself would be a worker and would work the field, would plow the field, despite the fact that he was a tremendous tzaddik. And miracles did happen on his behalf for the people, right? And moving on from the stories of the Tanaim, you have stories from Tanakh itself. From our parasha, v'gam hanevi'im amlu l'mechyatam. Even the Nevi'im, they worked for their living. Noach, in our parasha, we see after the Mabul, when Noach enters into the new world, asak b'zri'ah, he engaged in the activity of planting. Kemosh nimsar, vayachel Noach ish ha'adama, vayita karen. Noach became an ish ha'adama, and he planted these vineyards. And Targum Onkelos translates ish ha'adama, a man of the land, as Gevar Palach Be'ar'a, a person who worked the land. He had a profession, he worked for a living. But it wasn't just Noach. Avraham asak b're'eyat son, k'mo she'nemar ro'eh miknei Avraham. right? Abraham also worked as a shepherd. Yitzhak afu zara. He also planted and plowed, k'moshe ne'emar, vayizra Yitzhak ba'aretz hahi, as well as Yaakov haya shomer tzon sechir. Ve'amar matai e'ese gam anochi lebeti. Yaakov took care of and watched the different animals as a shepherd, as is described in the pasuk that he wants to go and make his own living. He doesn't want to work for Lavan anymore. He wants to make his own name, his own living for his family. They all worked. Noah, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. These are Nevi'im, not regular people. Va'adon ha-Nevi'im, and the greatest of all the Nevi'im, referring to, of course, Moshe Rabbenu, haya ro'eh et son Yitro. He was a laborer on behalf of Yitro and watched the flock. V'dayenu bekach, and says Rabbenu Avraham ben Harambam, and I think that is enough in order to make my point. If all of these individuals did not rely on miracles, did not rely on Hashem providing for them, rather they themselves worked and made an effort to provide for themselves living, is that not enough for us to understand this point clearly? But he continues on, and he says that it's very easy to get confused on this issue of working, but yet still having bitachon, trust in Hashem. It's very easy to misinterpret and misunderstand someone who's just a lazy bum, who is it's very worthwhile to oppose such a person and to look down on such a person. And a person who really has bitachon, really has trust in Hashem, is worthy of praise. It's easy to confuse these two different types of groups. Shlomo HaMelech, megane tachlit ginui. He would go off, he would get very angry, so to speak. He would definitely chastise et ha'atzel, someone who is lazy, habatel, who would just sit back and not do anything. But he would also meshabeach b'chol lashon, he would praise in every type of form of language in his books, shel shevach et ha'charutz ha'oved le'mechyato, a person who is diligent, who is resilient, and would go and work for a living. Ella שדעותיהם ריקניות ומדברים נפשם כי אף שאינם כדאיים שיעשה להם נס, ראוי ביטחונם לשבח בצירוף אל בטלתם. That sometimes you have people who are certainly not worthy of miracles occurring on their behalf. And yet, they rely on Hashem to provide for them, and they use this as an excuse to be batel, to be lazy and not to do anything, and just rather to sit back and not to work. This is certainly a form of stupidity. And this, in fact, leads to tremendous poverty amongst these individuals. People who just rely on Hashem, but do not make an effort on their own. And Rabbenu Avraham continues to express how damaging this mistaken and false mentality is. If every person thinks that he is worthy and deserving of kindness and benevolence from God, that God will provide everything for him, like Eliyahu, let's say, and Elisha, that great miracles performed on behalf, they should be absolutely mocked and abused of this idea. Not only are they mistaken, they are causing a Chilul Hashem. Think about it. All the Risha'im who do not have bitachon and emunah in Hashem will look at them, ro'im, et shvar matzavam, look at these so-called tzaddikim and how destitute they are and how difficult and poor their situation is. Shem nizkakim and davot, and they are dependent upon the tzedakah and the handouts of others. The Risha'im look at these people and this causes a Chilul Hashem, because these people are, so to speak, representing the name of Borei Olam. However, Rabbeinu Avraham again tries to balance us in the right approach and says, do not think that as I have described the importance of work, of earning a living, is an excuse of hitmakrut le'inyanei ha'olam hazeh, to become addicted, to overwork yourself for attaining matters of this world. No, there is a balance. What's really appropriate is that a person works in a normal, balanced capacity, without any exaggeration without any overworking, and becoming addicted to your work style. And he should look inside himself and understand inside himself the ikaron haTorah, instill in himself the ideas of the Torah, to have trust in Hashem, and understand that at the end of the day, you must trust Hashem. Do not overwork yourself, but rather work yourself in a normal, acceptable amount, and then have trust in Hashem from that point on. A person should set aside most of his time, says Rabbenu Avraham, to engage in Torah and the performance of mitzvot. So there must be a balance, there must be a combination of serving Hashem, of following the Torah and mitzvot, of relying on Borei Olam to provide for you, but that really only takes place once there's a system set up that you are making an effort to be able to provide for yourself, and then Borei Olam takes it from there. And the entire learning that Rabbenu Avraham has just described for us fits very nicely in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot she brings. How wonderful is the learning of Torah with derech eretz. How do you understand the word derech eretz? He understands it as earning a living. Because when you are so busy learning Torah and also working, mashkachat avon, there's no way that you're going to come about to sin. You don't have time, energy to go about and do sins. And every study of Torah that does not have with it accompanying a profession, a job, to be able to support such a lifestyle, sofa betela, eventually it will come to an end. It is not a maintainable system. Begoreret avon, and will lead to avon, to sin, in many different possible ways, by borrowing without repaying, by being batel, have nothing else to do, and that free time leads to sinning. And thus Rabbenu Avraham gives us a tremendous lesson in bitachon, in trust in Hashem, but also the importance of making and earning a living, as we see in this week's parasha regarding Noach, that Noach got out of the teva. He saw the tremendous miracle that Borei Olam did for him, saved him, while the rest of the world perished in the flood. And yet he did not take upon himself the level of righteousness, so to speak, that he could sit back and Hashem will provide for him. He made an effort. He worked. So did our Avot. So did Moshe Rabbenu. So did many of the Tanaim in the times of the Mishnah. And thus certainly is our obligation to put an effort in, and not just to rely blindly on Hashem, but to do our effort and thus rely on Hashem that He will take care of the rest. For more information on classes on Tanakh, please go to tanakhstudy.com and have a great day, everyone.